Hello students, I'm Shaila Goel, your psychology teacher. Today we are going to understand more concepts regarding learning. Till now, whatever we have done, it has been learning due to the reinforcement or the end product that we get. Either it is punishment or reward or aversive food and other things. Now, in this session, we are going to understand how learning occurs without the reinforcement. It is known as cognitive learning. Learning that involves recognition of one's perception, knowledge, and ideas. I repeat, learning that involves recognition of one's perception, knowledge, and ideas. Now, beforehand, it was solely thought that learning occurs due to the SR connections and SS connections. But later on, it was said that there is a change in what the learner knows rather than what he does. And this form is known as latent learning or insight learning. Cognitive learning is further divided into two parts, that is insight learning and latent learning. Now, Kohler, a scientist, gave 4 levels of insight learning. First is a problem is given where you can't solve the problem. You gather the data, you think what is present with you. Second is incubation, where problem is put on hold. Problem is worked on unconsciously. Insight, suddenly there is a mental representation of the solution. And fourth is verification, that means whatever has come up into your mind is checked, and if the solution is checked and proved, then there is a insight learning that took place. Okay, now first is preparation, where you gather the data. Second is incubation, where you think unconsciously but you are not actively doing something for your problem. Third is insight, where the mental representation of the solution comes to you. And fourth is verification. Now students, what happened is, in his insight learning, it refers to the process through which a solution to the problem suddenly becomes clear, right? The problem is presented, after which a period of time follows without apparent progress, that is known as incubation period, and finally a solution suddenly emerges, that means insight. The solution can be repeated immediately the next time the problem is confronted. Now it is the solution, it will not be shown only if the reinforcement is given. It is a means to an end, and if you have recognized the relationship between a means and an end, then you can generalize it to the similar problems that will take place later on. Learning is not a specific set of condition association between stimuli and response, but a cognitive relationship between a means and an end, and thus it is generalized to similar problems. इसका मतलब ये होता है कि हमारे ज़रूरी नहीं है कि स्टिमुलाई और रिस्पॉन्स के अंदर एक कंडीशनिंग हो जाती है, जैसे कि बेल और सलाइवा में हुई थी, वो भी होती है, लेकिन सिर्फ वही नहीं होती, और भी बहुत चीज़ें होती हैं. कॉग्निटिव में क्या होता है, हमें ये पता चल जाता है कि ऐसा करने से ये मिल सकता है, तो हम आगे भी उसी तरीके के सॉल्यूशंस सिमिलर प्रॉब्लम्स को लगा सकते हैं, यूज़ कर सकते हैं. नाउ व्हाट हैपेंड इन इनसाइट लर्निंग बाय इनसाइट, Kohler kept chimpanzees in the cave and they were not given any food, but the food was at the top of the cage, that is bananas were hanged from the top of the cage and they were given different things to help them, right? For example, sticks, cartons, and other things. What he saw was the chimpanzee was sitting alone in the corner and doing nothing. After some time, he got up, he tried to reach the bananas, he was not able to reach it, and afterwards he stacked one box over the above, got on to the boxes and reached the banana and ate it. In this series of experiment, he has also given the sticks, and he saw that the chimpanzees were using the boxes as well as the sticks similarly. In the similar situation, similar kind of a learning is used, and to the that means the means to the end. They are using it and getting the banana. This is the insightful learning. That without the motivation, without the reinforcement, then also chimpanzee is performing certain task. It doesn't need reinforcement every time. It is a means to an end, this learning, and this is known as insightful learning. Next type of learning was given by Tolman. Edward Tolman believed that animals were acquiring knowledge from their surroundings. He called cognitions. He found that rats being transported around his laboratory were showing evidence that they had learned something about the space in the later test. Now he was doing the test on rats, and according to him, the rats were learning about the spaces, and for that he tried to got what is happening. He understood that latent learning was happening. A new behavior is learned but not demonstrated until the reinforcement is provided for displaying it. According to him, हम लर्न कर लेते हैं और जब तक हमें reinforcement नहीं मिलती तब तक हम दिखाते नहीं है कि हमें आ गया है. Tolman explained it with an experiment on rats, wherein the rats were grouped in two, and the one group was given food at the end of the maze while the other was not given any food. Let us understand what happened to get the change in the behavior. How do we know that learning has occurred? There was lots of questions. Behaviorists till now believe that change in behavior leads to learning. But Tolman said, are you sure whether the learning is actually the behavior only? Can learning occur without a change in behavior? Can learning happen unintentionally and not to be evidenced? That means it is going on inside you and there is no evidence of it. Can learning happen without reinforcement? For this, he had an idea. He took rats from his laboratory, and there was a group 1 which was never reinforced, group 2 that were always reinforced, and group 3 was reinforced only after 10 days. Group 1 kind of figures it only, but then even after the 5th day they did not show any performance. Group 2 on the second day manifested fewer errors getting to the end of the maze because they are motivated by the reward. Group 3 on the other hand performed like the first group, but on the 11th day when they were reinforced with food, they showed suddenly increase in the performance. Now how this happened? They have learned the maze, but group 1 was not showing any performance because there was no food out at the end. There was no reinforcement. Learning is always purposive and goal directed, and organisms learns by pursuing science. Application state goals clearly and specifically. For us also, we asked everyone, state the goals, what you want, right? And Tolman concluded that learning can happen possibly even without us knowing. This learning had occurred and has just not been evidenced yet. There's been no motivation for, in this case, the rats to show that they knew the maze. When reinforcement was finally presented in the third group, they quickly showed that they have been learning, as evidenced by the abrupt increase in the performance when food was given. Tolman called this the latent learning. That after reinforcement, after the goal that you have been given, that it reach your food, they have shown the things. Present topics that are congruent to the needs and interests of the students make them more learner. The rats of group 3 were learning during the first 10 days even when there was no reinforcement to the evidence that learning has taken place. Now, learning takes place even in the absence of the reinforcement. This is the main point that Tolman wanted to clear. The mere exposure to the maze allows the rats to build a mental mode of their surroundings, which they later used to quickly solve the maze. He called this internal perceptual representation of external environmental features and landmarks as cognitive maps. Now, students, what happened is when they were placed in the maze क्या होता है, भूल भुलैया, तब उन्होंने याद कर लिया रास्ता, उसे मेंटल रिप्रेजेंटेशन बना ली, उसने अपने इन्वायरमेंट की सारे लैंडमार्क्स रख लिए, फीचर्स रख लिए, लेकिन जब उनके पास कोई गोल नहीं था पहुंचने का, ज़रूरत नहीं थी, तो वो बैठे रहे. जब उनको पता चला कि उनका गोल हो गया कि फूड है वहाँ पे एंड दे वर फीलिंग हंग्री, they really went fast and got their food. That is known as cognitive. That means they have made a cognitive map when they were trying to solve the maze, right? First they were doing it, but afterwards they were not responding because there was no goal after that. Okay, so it is based on today's life that we should give a goal to a child, and if there is a goal, the child does perform better. It is for everybody, not only for children, for adults also. Similarly, he said that we don't need every time reinforcement to reach to our goals. It is directed, and we make special occasions in our mental representation, and this help us to reach to our goals. I hope you have learned very well and you will use this insightful learning and latent learning concepts clearly. Have a nice learning. Happy learning. Thank you, students.